Hi, everybody. This is Dean Val and Dean Kevin with Reel to Reel movie review. Today, we have two movies actually reviewing Doctor Strange and Doctor Strange Love. And I watched Doctor Strange, and Kevin watched Doctor Strange Love. So they're both sort of battle oriented. They're both something we could talk about here. We're reviewing two movies actually today, Doctor Strangelove 2. So welcome anyway. I just played the trailer for Doctor Strange, and here's a synopsis for the movie, which was in 2016. Yeah, I found it a lot. There's a lot of phenomena in this movie. It doesn't really address real awareness, but it has a lot of magic, sorcery, spells, portals, phenomena type, skills. Of course, this is from Marvel Comics. So, the superhero type idea. But it was fun to watch for those of us that did get to see it. And I'll just go through a synopsis here for it. A sorcerer, later revealed to be Cocillus, tears some pages from a chained book in an old, seemingly Gothic library. His minions restrain the librarian with hands of energy or bands of energy. Cocillus uses two large knives to decapitate the man and escapes with the help of several followers. The owner of the book, whom we later meet as the Ancient One, played by Tilda Swinton, goes after them. As he flees, Cocillus bends, folds, and reshapes the streets and buildings of the city. Just like Inception, movie Inception in 2010, but more kaleidoscopic. Though she's a formidable magical fighter, the Ancient One is unable to pin down Cocillus, and he escapes. Dr. Stephen Strange, played by Benedict Cumberbatch, is cool and confident as he performs a delicate brain operation. As he finishes, Dr. Christine Palmer, played by Rachel McAdams, rushes in to show him an x-ray of a patient with a bullet in his brain. He immediately dismisses the case as hopeless, but with further prodding from Christine, he realizes that the patient is comatose because his medulla oblongata has been poisoned by trace elements in the bullet. Strange realizes he can save the man's life and goes to the ER surgery and quickly does a manual extraction with forceps, demonstrating his impressive hand control. The doctor who made the initial diagnosis is left humiliated by Strange's overwhelming ego. Later, Strange and Christine joke about their ongoing off-again relationship. She turns down his request to join him that evening. Strange dresses for the evening in his expensive condo, pausing to choose from a drawer full of high-end watches. Speeding out of his condo in his Lamborghini, Strange heads north. He calls an assistant to consider his next patients. He's in high demand, but he wants only difficult, interesting cases. Distracted and driving recklessly, he crashes and the car plunges into the river. As his car is wrecked, his hands slam into the dashboard. He is airlifted back to the hospital, and Christine is there when he awakens, badly hurt. His hands have had to be rebuilt and are immobilized in a framework of pins and wires. Recovering slowly after further surgeries, his hands remain stiff and shaky. He can no longer work as a neurosurgeon. Feeling sorry for himself, Strange breaks up with Christine. He hears about a man called Jonathan Pagborn, who inexplicably recovered from a half-body paralysis. Strange finds Panghorn playing basketball, and the man tells him he found the cure in Kamar Taj, which is in Nepal. Strange makes his way to Nepal and wanders the streets of Kathmandu. He is noticed and followed. Mordo saves him from the muggers and takes him to Kamar Taj, where he meets the Ancient One. She knows all about Strange and introduces him to an alternate reality where many hidden universes and dimensions can be harnessed for power and mystical guidance. He begins training and slowly learns to open gates to jump across the world. He learns the temple is part of a secret group saving the world from enemies in other dimensions and universes. While training, Mordo shows Strange a magic stick, a relic that can be used as a weapon, and says relics must choose their user. He explains that Caecilius, a former student of the Ancient One, has stolen a spell from a book and escaped with 3 zealots. There is worry he will decipher the spell and call on Dormammu from the dark dimension to take over the world. Strange is upset and says he hasn't come to join their group, only to cure his hands. Strange visits Kamar Taj Library, which is kept by Wong, played by Benedict Wong. Strange becomes a voracious student, borrowing and reading many books from the humorless Wong. When he asked about the book that Caecilius was after, Wong explains that it's reserved for use only by the sorcerer supreme, and it's the one that Caecilius stole pages from. When Strange masters creating portals, he steals more books from the library and learns about astral projection. One night when Wong appears to be out of the library, Strange learns how to use a time-shifting pendant, the Eye of Agamotto, which enables him to see the missing page from the book. Mordo and Wong tell him it is forbidden to use time spells as they can cause time loops that a welder can be stuck in forever, and also let evil forces into their universe. Wong explains that 3 sanctums, London, New York, and Hong Kong, where the group watches out for the world. He also gives more of Dormammu's history, that he is a purely evil being bent on conquering all the known worlds, and that Earth has long been his ultimate target. Caecilius finally deciphers the stole spell, and his group attacks the London Sanctum, a plain building with a logo window. The backlash from the London Sanctum throws Strange through a door and into the New York Sanctum. The building is deserted as he wanders the floors looking at various artifacts. He notices a burgundy cloak in a glass case that moves as he looks at it. At the end of a corridor, he finds 3 glass doors that turn out to be gateways to other places. The destination is changed by turning a dial next to each door. Caecilius and his group attack the New York Sanctum. Strange develops fighting skills on the fly. He gets rid of 2 zealots using the gateways and the burgundy cloak, a relic which seems to have some intelligence and wraps itself around him. The cloak helps him subdue the 3rd zealot and restrain Caecilius in an antique binding rack. Strange and Caecilius have a talk about the Ancient One and immortality, in which Caecilius claims that the Ancient One has achieved her long life using powers from the dark dimension. Once Strange lets down his guard, the 3rd zealot revives and stabs him. Strange manages to open a gate and stagger into a cleaner's closet in Christine's hospital. He finds her and barely manages to get on a table as Christine hooks him up to a heart monitor, and performs an emergency pericardiocentesis to drain excess blood from around his heart. Meanwhile, Strange separates his astral body and continues to fight the zealot, finally killing him with the help of Christine, who shocks him with a defibrillator, killing the zealot. The zealot isn't visible to Christine, but she can tell something is going on, and she's very spooked. Sewn up and recovering, Strange tells Christine he must return and go back through the gate. Caecilius has escaped, and Mordo joins Strange in New York. The Ancient One also comes and suggests Strange take over the New York sanctum. They're impressed the magical cape, known as the Cloak of Levitation, has chosen him. However, Strange is reluctant to take the position until they tell him more about Caecilius and also about the Ancient One's use of dark magic to prolong her life. And this, of course, is like the Reiki idea, where you obtain energy from another person. She's using the dark energies to maintain her immortality, which she, in the last part of the movie, is she gives that up. She really finds no benefit in the immortality that she's gained, and she chooses to die. But this idea that you can, and this is like an idea that you can, you could call it evil or dark energy to obtain immortality. I mean, it's playing around with the forces of nature. You're manipulating forces rather than becoming more aware to what already is. And that's where we're coming from. We're helping people to see. In a sense, people are already immortal. I mean, we live forever, or we live in an endless awareness that we are. So it's not about immortality, it's just becoming more aware to who we really are as a real awareness, and choosing our position and relating to this endlessness in whatever way we choose. But this is a good movie in terms of like just sparking some kind of recognition, possibly, and that's why we're here giving our viewpoint. Caecilius returns with more zealots, and Strange creates a mirror dimension to contain the fight, which spills out into the street. Caecilius uses his powers to shapeshift the city, as he did in the opening scene when he fought the Ancient One, and disorient Strange. The Ancient One returns to help, but she fails and is mortally wounded. Strange takes her to Christine's hospital, but it is too late. Strange follows the Ancient One's spirit in his astral form, and they talk overlooking New York City. She accepts this is her end and suggests Strange can take over. Back in New York sanctum, Strange and Mordo realize Hong Kong is next on Caecilius' list. They gate over, but the Hong Kong sanctum has been overrun and the destructive force is enveloping the city. Wong, who is guarding it, is dead, and Dormammu's dark dimension is growing from the location of the sanctum. Strange uses the eye of Agamotto to start reversing the process, but Caecilius recovers and manages to stun Strange, stopping the process before it can complete. Strange thinks of something and flies off into the heart of the Dormammu's dark dimension. Here he confronts Dormammu and manages to create an infinite time loop. Dormammu kills Strange in various ways, but time is always reset to the moment Strange first confronted him. Dormammu is furious, but finally agrees to leave Earth alone in return for Strange stopping the time loop. Back on the street, Strange sends Caecilius and his crew into the dark dimension just before it vanishes. So this is interesting. So Doctor Strange uses this time, like if you've seen Groundhog Day, it's a repeat over and over again of a specific scene. And Doctor Strange is able to create this scene in front of Dormammu, which is the evil, you could say it's the Kal Naranjan or some Jot Naranjan, or this evil force that is coming to take over Earth. But he manages to catch Dormammu in this time sequence over and over again. So each time Dormammu kills him, Doctor Strange comes back and does another, take on the scene, another variant on the scene, until Dormammu is just frustrated and he doesn't want to be caught here. It gets boring for him and frustrating. So he makes a deal with Doctor Strange. If Dormammu leaves the Earth with his minions, he will let go of this time sequence, this time frame that he caught Dormammu in. So the deal is made. Okay, Mordo is upset that Strange broke the rules by using the time pendant, and that the Ancient One used what he considered to be forbidden powers to prolong her life. Before she died, the Ancient One warned Strange that Mordo was very big on following the rules, both his weakness and his strength, and that Strange's flexibility would be an important factor when they work together. But Mordo says there must be a reckoning, and he retires from the group and walks away. Okay, Mordo was the black fellow in the movie, and he decided to walk away because he was literal. He followed everything literally. So, and Doctor Strange is more flexible, so he was able to penetrate the so-called secrets of the universe here and keep up with it. And he left with Mordo left, and Doctor Strange remained, protecting the Earth here, and could say the real, not the real side, but the mystical side of things here in creation. He was one of the protectors. Strange takes over the New York sanctum. He puts the Eye of Agamotto back in its guarded place at Camartage, where Wong tells him it's an infinity stone. Sometime later, Doctor Strange sits with Thor and agrees to help him find Odin and the Earth of Thor's scheming brother Loki. Mordo visits Panghorn and takes back the magic, regaining his back. Panghorn collapses. Mordo says the problem is too many sorcerers on Earth. I didn't see that part. But anyway, there's this synopsis of Doctor Strange. Again, it's all about phenomena, magic, sorcery, etc., which again, be careful with when you're dealing with this. Kevin here has had lots of experiences with astral projection and opening portals, etc. He can talk about this. But I think one of the best things in the movie was when one of the best lines was when Mordo tells Doctor Strange, "Might I offer you some advice? Forget everything that you think you know." And that's kind of what I see with the new presentation and everything I've become more aware of. It's like, it's not what you think, and forget everything you know, because there's always something new going on every day, every moment. And to be able to be aware of that, you in a sense let things go. You know, you still have them available, but you let them go. Don't clutch them or hold on to them or carry them around with you like baggage, because they're always there, but you don't have to be attached to them. We call these things tap lines, where you're attached to certain things that hinder your awareness to become more aware. So that part of the movie I liked, where Mordo says, I offer you some advice, forget everything that you think you know. But it's hard for people that are literal to do this because they're so invested in their education and, you know, what they learned and how they see things. But the way the world is right now, it's going to come to the point where in order to become more aware and survive better, folks will have to let go of their preconceived notions and of things, or else they're going to be sucked back into more control from the controllers. Ryan, do you have any take on this movie? Any comments, since you saw it many, many times?
Yes, it's very interesting for me because it's a magical and astronaut. I love this category very much. It is some part of this movie very interesting for me, like about the chakras, and the body can heal by itself, not need to doctor or anything. It shows to me some reptilians and some of the genetics of human body of and cut the genetics, and because they don't want to humans can heal him by the self, so they need to a doctor the drugs by the reptilian make it. Is interesting for me. When the the part was Dr. Sen tried to draw a circle for a portal, but he cannot mm, to make his portal. The Asian one told them about you need to control your energy for your using, not resisting, not accept all, because maybe when you accept all the energy, your body is destroyed, you cannot control it. And she told them about not, and the physical body not important, maybe some damages, some destroy, not important for the astral body. Astral body is another body of yourself, and you can do everything you want, not because your finger is broken, you can not do anything. Yes, it is interesting for me. After that, some maybe Kevin said some interesting. After that, I told more.
Thanks, Ryan. Yeah,
Welcome.
thank you. Yeah, let me ask Kevin. He's had a lot of experience with astral travel. In the movie, the ancient one, she goes like this. She goes whoop, or she sucks the astral body out of Doctor Strange, and she also projects his astral body into all these other dimensions to give him an example of that there's more than the physical. Which in the beginning of the movie, that's all he thought, that there's just floating cells, you know, bodies made up of cells, etc. So she actually projects him out of the physical into his astral, and utilizing his astral body just by going zoop. He's all over the place in all these different dimensions floating around, and he's screaming and everything. So is this something that's actually plausible? Can you zap somebody out of their physical body into their astral body?
Yep. Anything's possible in creation, and it's all about agreement. So if somebody has that ability and you agree to them, then effectively that is what you are going to experience. You give them agreement, permission to do that to you, and off into pinging around the real side you will go, projected from your astral body just as readily as you would have made the decision to do so yourself.
In this case, in the movie, he was a skeptic. He didn't necessarily agree to it. He was actually skeptical.
Well, perhaps his agreements were subconscious, as the vast majority of agreements are. You know, most people don't wonder why they got in the predicaments they did, but of course everything is according to our design and how we have fashioned our simulation. And so, as I said, if we find ourselves in adverse situations that we'd rather we weren't in, well, these are still agreements that are in our consciousness that allows that to be so. And so more likely then they were subconscious agreements.
Yes, yes. I have a quote here by Arthur Clarke. Are you familiar with Arthur Clarke? He's English.
Arthur C. Clarke, the inventor of the communication satellite.
Yes.
And he did the movie 2001.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he says any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. So Dwayne has said this many times. It's like basically all this stuff is just black magic, the technology we have, or not necessarily black, but it's just basically magic, you know, in a way you could say technology is magic or magic is technology, but it's just something that's created. It looks kind of neat, you know, it looks like it's specialized and etc. But with any knowledge of how it works, you can utilize it, both technology and magic. So I found that quote. I thought it was interesting. Yeah, he's the guy that did 2001. Yeah, but you know, things we think of as spiritual or mystical, I mean, they're just in a way mechanical. They're just created out of, you know, if you know how the mechanism, how things work, you know, you can make it happen in creation. So what we're doing on this show is taking it a step further into the arena of awareness, just becoming more aware. And then you can have everything, including technology if you want it, but it's just the awareness supersedes all these things because it's an isness that just exists on its own without any creational factors. It just is. So it's a matter of recognizing what already exists, not about creating things to better mankind or, you know, to gain enlightenment or anything like that. It's just coming in agreement with this reality, this existence that already is. You form like an agreement with it, and then it agrees with you, since basically you're the same essence, you're the same as it. We've heard this idea of like we're a spark of God, and that's kind of the idea where we're part of this awareness, just a smaller speck of it. So it's already perfect. So it's just a matter of aligning ourselves with it, not creating something more, you know, that we think it is, because it's already perfect, it's already there, it's already aware. So there's nothing that can be added to it. So what we do is become aware of it, recognize it for what it is, and in a way, that's our relationship or we establish a relationship with it of our choosing how we want to see it. So we use these movies as a means to help people to see what this is about, what life is about. Okay. Did you have something on this Dr. Strangelove that you saw, Kevin? Did you want to read something?
Well, I might just quickly skim through a few notes I was making as you was reading out the synopsis about this one.
Great. Yeah.
Just briefly. So, And it was very similar to the previous movie we reviewed, really, in a sense, which was The Illusionist. Basically, the individual was shaping the simulation, and to do that, he would be accessing his ethereal vehicle, and through the psychic science aspect of that, he would then be able to manipulate. And then, of course, we have the situation where people do access the ethereal vehicle, then becomes always the option of using it for good or ill, which, of course, is part of the duality of creation. So either option will keep you embroiled in creation as the effects. And in the movie, Doctor Strange, or whatever it was, all the individuals in it would be in each other's experience based on agreements that they would be there, because you can't feature in somebody's experience unless there's agreement which allows you to feature in their simulation and they in theirs. So if the agreements weren't made in that current lifetime, it would have been made previous to it. And of course, then if you agree with an individual, you agree with all the particulars that individual and its consciousness comprises of. And that would, if an individual was then inclined towards the use of the psychic sciences and was able to manipulate the simulation, you're then taking that and incorporating that into your own experience. And so these individuals now can manipulate in your simulation as well. And of course, we can say that, like you were saying, the individuals do have the opportunity to become more aware through doing that which they never have before, to be more, to see more, to become more aware of more, etc. But on the other hand, all that they were doing was creationally based and personal, self-orientated, and so it's two sides of the coin, really. And of course, they're embroiling each other in their battles and altercations, which will have them their karma entwined, and so they'll be spinning off across creation in endless lifetimes where they're embroiled in each other's business until they decide otherwise and release the tap lines. And in regards to directly manipulating creation through the psychic sciences of the ethereal vehicle, I mean, really, in reality, everything is instantly so anyway. The moment we decide something, it is so on the real side. If you were to go on the real side, you would see that everyone's intent, ideas, thoughts, and emotions would be instantly manifest. But the only difference is that because of the simulated cause to effect nature of creation, it goes through a process like a sequence more so. But that sequence and the time phases are based on also agreement. And any laws then of creation in regards to things like gravity, what can be, what can't be, is again based on agreement as to how the consciousness is formed, which then affects the simulator according to the parameters of the consciousness. And so if you have an individual changing then what is the established consciousness which affects the established creation, you must have an individual that is bypassing the consciousness in order to do so, which is then the ethereal part of the self, and that's how it is done. Because you sit in the consciousness, you are resigning yourself to that and how it has been established. And so the so-called laws of your simulation in wherever you happen to be are based on those that are already established through the consciousness. And so in order to bypass them and change what would be quote unquote laws of science, you would have to then access the ethereal vehicle, which is beyond the consciousness, and this is how you do it through the ethereal vehicle. And I can imagine this ancient one could well have been perhaps a guide, because like I said in The Illusionist, although what they were doing was perhaps taking them along the lines of sort of magic manipulation and such. Nevertheless, if it was a guide, they could have recognised the individual wasn't ready for anything beyond creation, but nudged them along in a direction that would at least have them becoming more aware of more. And I can imagine this gating, going through the gates, was a bit similar to bilocation. And I thought it was quite interesting when he was using his magic stick, because I remember Dwayne said once on a Skype that what you have is everything is based on decision and agreement and a choice, and then people then bring in the props and bring in the additional ideas and encompass them with that. He said it's like plugging a fan into the wall socket, having it operating, and then doing a ritualistic dance around it and claiming that it is the dance that is causing the fan to be operating. and so more the stick is more a prop really, and really it's his decision and agreement to do what he does, and then he brings in a stick and said this is what is required to do it. And I can imagine the library being the Akashic records, then it was in the movie. And like Graham was saying, in creation there's an energy that flows through it, and then people utilize it however they decide, and then they add whatever labels they want to it, be they good or evil or this and that and so on and so forth. And then of course with that movie it would very much be promoting or marketing the idea of immortality, like you were saying, whereas of course what would be mortality would simply be someone's consideration that their life ends when their body vehicle expires, which wouldn't be the case. And you also would have the marketing of the magic forces, encouraging people to use the psychic science abilities, which again would keep them caught in creation, which the controllers would want, because then it keeps them mired in their simulated matrix and as their future unconscious slaves, etc. And when they're talking about time loops, I mean, when people are caught in each other's time loops, well, I would say we're caught in each other's time loops anyway, really. It's just it's dragged out over a longer duration because everyone's embroiled in each other's karma and tap lines, and so people keep featuring each other's experience lifetime after lifetime, which is really a time loop, just more dragged out. And so that one's more in the movie. That would just be one that was a shorter duration. And I've seen things like those time loops expressed in the movies, and it's very interesting because obviously, if you're just immersed in the personal self and you are taken back to the beginning of a certain time frame again, you obviously wouldn't have any memory of it. And yeah, the shape shifting again would be marketed as well, and it's quite interesting with the shape shifting stuff because basically the body is an electromagnetic energy field based on the ideas that make it so. So you change the ideas, or which can translate as frequencies, and you would then change its base electromagnetic form, which then if an individual were to look at it through the five senses, they would decode it in the form it now was in accordance to the changed frequency fields that now make up its construction. And again, that would be done through the ethereal vehicle. And astral projection is very dodgy because you can cause holes in your aura, and you can have entities coming through it, and you can have your cord severed, and you can be stuck on the astral.
Thanks. The Ancient One, went on to who knows where. She was through with her lessons or her experience there as the Ancient One, the guardian, basically of these three centers: Hong Kong, New York, and London. Three centers that on Earth that were kind of managing the mystical part of the energies coming into Earth. Well, she went on. Okay, and then Dr. Strange kind of he took over in a way. So he's kind of stuck now in this experience. It looks like he's the good guy and he's like all this power and everything, but actually he's caught in his own time loop here. Could be stretched out too to who knows how long until he sees more. But he's now engrossed in this idea of good and evil, protecting the planet from the bad forces. So that's going to take a while, I see. And then the Ancient One, she in a way has gone past it. I mean, she looks like you kind of forget about her in the movie, but in a way, she's on to more, experiences and maybe to become even more aware than what she was before. And then one of the things that was said here by somebody, it might have been the Ancient One, that she said to Dr. Strange, it's not about you. It's not about you. It's the simplest lesson. It's not about you. And that's kind of, you'd say, talking to the personal self. It's not about the personal self. It's all about the real awareness, but the personal self, which most people think, and which the Dr. Strange here exemplified, having a big ego and it was all about him. He kind of let that go in a sense, and to gain these abilities, he had to let go of some of this, although he still had remnants of it, and it's just a different level, you could say, of ego, or it's about me. Now it's about me as being the protector of the protector of the good energies here on Earth. But to give you a consideration, it's not about any of these things. Again, it's about the awareness. Awareness supersedes everything, including good and evil, which a lot of these movies, to make them entertaining, you have the good versus the evil, the battle scenes. And that's, I think, we have some time. Kevin's going to go over some of this, the battle kind of idea. It doesn't have to be a battle. The real guides don't battle. They don't use that function unless it's for an experience that the person needs to be demonstrated to. But it's not about that. It's becoming more aware. That supersedes the battle. You could say it gets above that conflict thing, because we're already in a battle here. This is all aggravation and creation. We're already battling. So get beyond that with your awareness. You can do it or not, but it's not about that. And this good versus evil idea promoted by the Christians and other paths and religions, you don't have to go there, really. It just is what it is. You can call it good or you can call it evil, but it is what it is. Deal with it best you can with creativity, but it's the awareness and the recognition of what already is that will get you beyond this, or I shouldn't say beyond it, but just more of an expansive view, so you can handle it and survive and just have a greater viewpoint here. Anything else before we go on, Ryan? You want to say anything else? Because we're going to go on to another. Kevin's got something here too.
About this movie, something reminds me being told about this method, and I think he told and not use this kind of energy because they have some karma and maybe some agreement with the reptilians, because this method is has a Asian and old, and they and this method made by reptilians. I just a question as you and Kevin about what's your opinion? Use this kind of energy, because I have some like I maybe sometime I like the doctors use healing and help the other creature or destroy some evil. But sometimes I thinking about, is that good to helping to heal or destroy? Doing about the destroyed the other creature, he told why to war and fighting with them, just talk with them and to become aware and more reality. About the other one, what do you say?
About using these energies for healing? Is that your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I'm healing the people.
Well, I think Kevin has a good answer for that.
Do whatever you like in creation, but be aware you will have the effects that follow. The difference is, as you become more aware, you are more conscious of the effects that follow, as opposed to them being unconscious. And so whatever you create for yourself, you are then in a better position to deal with them. But you always want to endeavour more so through your creations and what you do that it makes more so it makes sense with the whole of life, as opposed to something that is more personal, self orientated. And when it comes to battling creatures on the real side, I mean, what I tend to find is the real side experiences will express as though you are fighting the ill-intended monsters and the dark forces, but very often these are effects that the dark forces have created for themselves based on their abrasive natures, and you are simply then almost the agent by which that is delivering the effects that they have created for themselves. So in a sense, they are really attacking themselves, if you look at it from that point of view, because as I said, there's nothing can happen in your experience unless you have created it, and therefore you have chosen to experience it. And so if a dark force character is finding themselves being attacked, or a monster is being destroyed, it is because the monster or the dark force individual has created the circumstances, has decided on the ideas that have brought that into effect for their experience. And you are and then if you happen to find yourself doing the destroying of the monster bit, then you are simply fulfilling or playing that role in their movie of which they have decided. And so in fact, if you look at it from that point of view, then you can be slightly less concerned over situations where you find yourself destroying monsters and squabbling on the real side and such. And
Yeah, and Ryan, like Dwayne says, there are no answers, just choices. So moment by moment, I just go by whatever makes sense, for the situation. I wouldn't say there's an overall answer for this. It's just whatever makes sense for the particulars that you're dealing with. You'll know intuitively what to do or not to do. To leave it. A lot of times Dwayne just leaves it. There's situations where he just walks away because he doesn't want to get involved with karma, with the karmic repercussions. So he just walks away, and it's everybody in a way is on their own here. We support each other best we can, and but actually we all have to figure it out ourselves. So it's helping people. Yeah, it's choices you make. So you'll know, or you won't. I mean, you'll know, and you'll know by the results or the effect. So, okay, let's go on to Kevin. Go ahead if you have a little bit still.
Yeah. And like Val says, just to do it, see the effects. If they are not to your liking, then make better choices and don't do that which caused you that adverse situation again.
Yeah.
That's how.
Next time.
Yeah. Okay, this is broadly about battles in general. It was supposed to be for Doctor Strangelove, but it would apply to any movie that involved battling, wars, confrontation between countries. No.
In regards to the overall theme of the movie Doctor Strangelove, we are presented with the surface arena of what seems to always be countries in constant conflict. In the case of the movie, the antagonists, the Russians, and the good guys, the Americans, with the British. In reality, the entire planet is 100% controlled and human farming, that which controls it being the reptilians, that through sheer boredom, as tends to be the case with individuals that have been cycling in creation for the longest time, tending to alleviate the boredom in all manner of creative ways. In the case of the reptilians, they elected to move along controlling lines, to destroy planets, to subjugate and enslave every species they come across, to battle, to invade, a desire to conquer and manipulate. for this would become their decided sensation, to feed the insatiable emotional aspect of the personal self that always seeks to be stimulated in some way or another. A distorted pursuit then, a thrill-seeking, that is, at the expense of others, a limiting and restricting of the positions and circumstances of others to enhance your own situation. In reality, we all are beings of light. We all are this real awareness that stands in the isness true reality of ourselves. But it's a case that we must recognize this reality that we are. Hence the necessity for simulated creations, which are designed for the sole purpose of recognizing the is from. As this isness is an everything reality, an absolute everything, the only determined way to recognize it is through comparison. To compare something to something else is to recognize the difference between the two. And so the simulation is designed that the awareness can be placed within what is a reality that isn't everything, that comprises of individualized, separated sequences of events, of motion, and the seeming passage of time. The vehicle that the awareness is placed within is the consciousness. The consciousness is constructed according to the ideas we decide and add to it, like files on a computer, and the consciousness then processes these ideas into simulated experiences based on the nature, the specifics of these ideas, through the process of cause to effect. We can see then that we are each the deciders of everything in our simulated experience, and also we can see that the simulators have unlimited creational potential. If we decide it, it can be so. And by that very token then, it's rather apparent that there is room for everyone in creation, and in whatever ways they want to mould it, to utilize the mechanics of it, to experience in whatever ways they wish. As all experience really, regardless of the form it takes, is necessary for a process whereby we go through creation. We have our endless lifetimes, our endless experiences, and eventually come to a point where we decide to want to be more than just the effects of a created consciousness in a simulated reality. As we flounder around in creation, however, we disconnect from the real awareness. The moment we start self-deciding, the moment we assume certain body types that have extra facilities, that of the literal parts, and as we start creating our ideas, so do we forge all our various experiences. For if we remained in body types that lacked this additional free will deciding facility, yes, we have then the connection with our real awareness. We stand in the nowness of its reality while in creation, but really we are no closer to recognizing the is, as we still stand in the real awareness that is a part of the is that we don't recognize. And until we start self-deciding through the mechanics of the personal self, we won't be creating that which we need as the comparison to recognize the isness that our real awareness is. We need to disconnect from the real awareness. We need to create, and thus be encased within the illusions of our creations. We have then an awareness split, a personal awareness and a real awareness, and now we have a comparison that when the moment comes that we decide to be more than illusionary effects, we have the means available by which we can do so. We have the available comparison, the personal self and its simulation of consciousness, and the real awareness and isness. But just as we create and are the effects of what we have decided as to the ideas we incorporate into our consciousness to effect our simulation, so also we can decide on the ideas of others, and based on the mechanics of the consciousness, it makes no difference as to the source of the ideas. If we decide on them, if we program them into our consciousness, we experience the simulated effects. And really, any experience is as valid as any other, as references, all eventual comparisons for the is. What happens, however, is that as this disconnect occurs, so do individuals forget why they even are in the simulators in the first place, and they chase and establish what they do to afford that which their personal self always seeks, comfort and emotional stimulating thrills. What is also not recognized is that everyone can create and have everything they want, and so there is no need for competition, squabbling over lands, resources, etc. But the consciousness of certain types of species, the reptilians as the prime example, is developed that they have immersed themselves in the conviction that they must have everything, which stems from an insecurity that they won't be able to have what they want without depriving everyone else and having everything for themselves. A rather distorted contention that stems from the unaware, who can't appreciate how creation is a simulator with room for all and everyone's respective creations. Such abrasive species do, however, recognize how consciousness forges experience. They realize also that if their ideas are decided and agreed upon, then the effects of them become the reality also of those that agree, and that they, the controllers, the creators of the ideas, can feature also in the experiences of the agreeable individuals, for nothing or anybody can feature in anyone's simulation unless there is agreement with the ideas of the situations or individuals that allow the effects of them to be so for them and feature in their simulation. So it's rather a case of a controlling species having to thrust forth their ideas and have those they wish to subjugate agree with these ideas. Then the reptilian controlling species and their creations, and those species in agreement, are intermingled in a collectively shared simulation. And as the nature and intent of the ideas of the controllers is that of domination and control, so will this be the experience for those that agree with them. They will be controlled and dominated. And overall then, as so-called time, cause and effect has gone by, so have the controlling reptilians taken over this entire simulation. As they have secured the agreements, so have they rather incorporated their experience into all those in agreement, and carried out their controlling inclinations through the permissions then that they can do so, based on the nature of the ideas agreed with, that being of acceptance of the overall idea of being controlled. And with the reptilians then, with the keys to the overall consciousness of all that agree, they can manipulate it and adjust it continuously, to continue to secure agreements and fine-tune them that allow them greater control and escalating restriction of those that agree, creating then an overall simulation that suits them, of them having everything and all others as their deprived slaves, although they could have had whatever they wanted anyway, without the need to involve other species and restrict them, but this they don't realise, so fear-racked are they of being outdone or others having what they can't. And as they control the simulation, they certainly control the planet Earth. They have created all the systems. They operate through all the governments and their respective military. As their want for control has escalated, so things have moved along to what they are today, whereas not that long ago, countries were more or less isolated from each other and never interfered in each other's business, though always the control was there in the background, and on the surface taking the form of the royalty, the kings, queens, etc., but more a case that the humans were enslaved, contained, and no further action was required. Let them run around in the prison yard in the various countries they were in. But as is always the case, individuals, the awareness is primed to wake up, to want to become more aware, and at a certain point through a simulator's cause and effect history, will this inclination come to the fore. The controllers will see this and realize that through awareness, through the want to be more than the consciousness, a consciousness the controllers have moulded through the agreements to their reptilian ideas, that this constitutes a retracting of agreement from the reptilian designed and managed consciousness, that withdraws then agreement support to their controlled systems and positions. So then it becomes necessary to manage the consciousness more so, to heighten the control, to get further agreement to restriction from their slaves, and so they would develop their takeover countries, invade and consolidate all of the planet, centralize power and decision making, and effectively have the ideas they want agreed with, promoted all over the world, to ensure everyone is regulated and dancing to the exact same restricting idea tune. For to control an individual, you need to ensure they agree with the ideas you create, and the more that they agree with just your ideas, the more you have control over them. Hence the need to micromanage the consciousness, to the extent that they even want to ensure they are controlling the very thoughts and emotions being created in your consciousness by technological means, representing then complete control and utter agreement from all humankind to the exact ideas the controllers wish to be made a collective, simulated reality. And as they control all the governments and the military, so then they engineer their wars, as effectively they play both sides. They create the circumstances that present as though war is necessary, through some fabricated justification, usually that which they had also created, like blowing up their own twin towers, for example. Then they have their agreements, which are essential, of course, for anything to be so. You need agreement from the masses. You need to market them into becoming soldiers. And so what we see as countries at odds with each other are simply one hand of the controllers playing off against the other, and through the invasions they can subjugate other races of people, to bring their consciousness into alignment with the ideas they want all to agree with, spreading like an infection that eventually has every human on the planet indistinguishable from one another, as their consciousnesses will be so very regulated with the same controller ideas, and so their effect experiences will be the same also, and moulded to the reptilian idea design. To become more aware, one must seek to activate and create and experience that which one hasn't before. For if you do what you always have, your experience remains the same, and you can't then see be and become aware of more than you currently are. This again explains the controller's motivation to stifle experience, to prevent and limit self-expression and exploration, to keep everything boxed in and unable to move beyond the boundaries the controllers have established, and a box they seek to continue to reduce in size. For if awareness were allowed to flourish, so would agreement to the controllers and their positions be lessened. And the controllers do realize how they must keep people one-dimensionally focused also on the situations they have created. And wars are as good a creation as any, not just to consolidate and restrict and manage the consciousness of every country, but to keep people focused on creationally based ideas, keep them distracted from perhaps exploring more of creation than just the one-dimensional physical, because the dark forces realize that even on transition, the consciousness of agreement, if maintained to the controllers, still have individuals retained in their simulated controlled matrix and into future lifetimes as unconscious slaves also. So the game is to maintain agreement and to keep everyone one-dimensionally focused and embroiled, that they remain in creation as the reptilians' agreeable slaves, and support a structure for their controlling positions. And in addition will be all the emotion that the masses will activate in response to all that the controllers create, the wars, etc., all of which again will be effects they must then experience. For the controllers do seek that people are perpetually fixated on their creations, for where focus and attention is placed is tantamount to agreement, and the more atrocious and abrasive the creations, the wars, etc., with emotional reaction, so are the agreement ideas more potently charged and more embedded. For a simple agreement can be fleeting, one more easy to release, but charge it with emotion, and it becomes more ingrained. For the astral body and the sensations experienced through it are that which the personal self always seeks to be stimulated, and any emotion will do. People will cling on to the ideas if infused with emotion, for as they hold to the idea, they have the sensation that accompanies the idea, the emotion they infused it with. And everyone involved, from the citizens to the soldiers, and all the countries that are drawn into the engineered wars, will be intermeshed in each other's karma, all embroiled in the agreements with each other, ensuring they are resigned to future lifetimes with each other, but most importantly, from the controller's perspective, still under the control of those they extended agreements to the ideas of. the ideas of war that not only affected the global war situations, but will project similar experience into future lifetimes and positions, as everything seeks to balance itself out, as those that slaughtered others on the battlefield then may become the recipients of such by the hand of those they killed in lifetimes yet to come, a back and forth that could spin out across creation forever, until the attachments and agreements that mesh individuals together through the abrasiveness they exact on each other are recognized and released, the tap lines that bind them broken. And really then, it's essential the controllers maintain agreement to these wars, to these conflicts that they create. They produce the villains and the heroes. They market the war as necessary for the good of all, and with the agreements they then can carry it out, all for the continuation of their agenda for greater control, to suppress humanity as it struggles to wake up to the reality of the real awareness that it is. And of course then, this notion of good versus evil, of the necessity of war, and the favourable circumstances that come from the good defeating evil, although in actuality all that happened was the agenda of control moving along in the aftermath of the wars. These ideas continually bombard the consciousness, all carrying then the effects that follow. And so we have endless movies depicting wars between countries, endless documentaries to program the consciousness that war is required if peace is to be assured, choosing good over evil, being with the side in war that is righteous, though any decided stance, that of good or evil, so labelled, will keep you as the effects of these ideas, these dualities of creation, and through the movies and televisions, an ingraining also of the notion of competition, that everyone must fight and squabble for what they want, moulding the consciousness in a way then that is similar and becoming more so to that of the fear-driven reptilians. And indeed, this is why, at this time, those that consciously and unconsciously agree with the reptilian designed consciousness simulation matrix will become reptilians themselves. Their body vehicles also the effect of this distorted, abrasive, competition-driven, aggressive consciousness.
Thanks, Kevin. So we were just talking about wars here, and conflict in the movies, and I see it as in history too, as history is portrayed as conflict and takeovers, control. What if history was portrayed as growing better potatoes or making better compost, things like that? All we see in the media is like wars, and this is in our subconscious, that this is the way it is. So that's part of the marketing. All the history that we get, and the movies portray this all the time. So it's all these images that don't have to be. Abraham Lincoln once said, he said, best way to get rid of your enemies is make them your friends. So that's what we're doing with the aliens right now, seeing if they come over and be, on our side, or, do better for themselves by making better decisions. Jeremy, do you have anything else? Did you see Doctor Strange?
So I seen it, the Doctor Strange, for what it is. It gets into, like, I guess you could say, the mystical idea of these art forms, and I mean that's all it is an idea. So I think movies like this, they're insightful for what they are, to let somebody know that there is something else, especially the scene where she kind of pushes his astral form out, but then again she refers to it as the soul. So it's useful for what it is if you can see through it, but then also at the same time it's also can confuse people too. So that was my little bit.
Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks. Okay, well, thanks everybody for being here for Reel to Reel. And we usually end with the new you, and that's our connection. So new you. Ryan?
No, you.
Jeremy?
New you.
Kevin?
You.